Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the Decision Maker's Toolkit for Economic Evaluation. We'll be breaking down the core concepts that literally determine how billions of dollars are spent on our collective health.
So this is the fundamental question, right? Every single government, organization, and healthcare system on the planet faces this exact same challenge. The demand for healthcare, well, it's always growing, but the money we have is always limited. So, how do we make the smartest possible choices?
Well, you can't just guess. To make smart, fair, and really effective decisions, you need a specific set of tools and a super clear vocabulary to measure what works, what doesn't, and what's truly worth the cost.
So, here's what we're going to cover. We'll walk through the 6 key parts of this toolkit. And trust me, by the end, you'll have the vocabulary to understand exactly how these critical, high-stakes decisions are actually made.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The core problem that makes all of these tools so necessary in the first place.
This right here is the basic tension at the absolute heart of health economics. I mean, think about it. As populations grow and new treatments come out, the demand for care just goes up and up. But the budgets, they don't always keep pace. And this squeeze means that getting the absolute best value for money is a top priority for decision makers everywhere.
So how do we measure performance? We start with 3 key terms that, they sound pretty similar, but they have crucially different meanings: efficacy, effectiveness, and efficiency.
Okay, think of efficacy as performance in a vacuum. It basically answers the question, does this drug or this procedure work in a perfect, totally controlled environment like a lab or a randomized clinical trial? It's all about potential.
Effectiveness, on the other hand, is the real test. It gets at the crucial question, does this thing actually work in the messy, complicated real world, where patients might have other conditions or maybe don't follow instructions perfectly? This is all about performance in practice.
And finally, efficiency. This is where the money comes in. It asks the ultimate question: are we getting the best possible results for the resources, the time, the money, the staff that we're putting in? This table really shows the logical journey for any new health intervention. You have to clear each of these hurdles in order. I mean, a treatment can't be effective if it doesn't have efficacy. And you can't even begin to talk about efficiency until you know for a fact that it's effective out there in the real world.
All right, now we get to the heavy hitters. We're going to look at our first major value tool, which helps decision makers compare different options, but, and this is key, strictly within the world of healthcare.
The main thing to get here is that a cost-effectiveness analysis keeps the outcomes in health-specific terms. It doesn't try to put a dollar value on life. Instead, it measures success in units like quality-adjusted life years, or QALYs, which is a really clever metric that looks at both how long a person lives and how well they live.
Now, this approach has 2 big strengths. First, by focusing purely on health benefits, it kind of sidesteps the really complex ethical challenge of putting a price tag on a human life. And second, because its rules are more standardized, it's way easier to confidently compare very different things, like, say, a new cancer drug and a new vaccine.
But that narrow focus is also its biggest weakness. It's awesome for comparing 2 health programs, but it can't tell you if you should fund a new clinic or, say, a new school. And because its main goal is just to maximize total health, it doesn't automatically factor in things like fairness or equity. Next up is our second major tool, cost-benefit analysis. Now this one takes a much broader, economy-wide perspective. It speaks the universal language of money. With a CBA, everything gets a price tag. The costs are in dollars, and yep, so are the benefits. Everything from a life saved, to fewer sick days, to reduced anxiety, it all gets converted into a monetary value.
And this is its superpower. Because everything is in dollars, you can directly compare the return on investment of a new hospital to that of a new highway or an education program. It helps answer that massive question: where should society's money really go?
But its greatest strength is also its greatest challenge. I mean, how do you accurately and ethically put a price on a year of healthy life, or the relief from a chronic disease? The methods for doing this are super complex, and they vary a lot, which can make it hard to trust or compare the results between studies.
So if you remember one thing, let it be this: CEA is an internal conversation within healthcare, speaking the language of health outcomes. CBA is a society-wide conversation, speaking the universal language of money. One helps you choose the best treatment, the other helps you choose between a treatment and a new bridge.
Okay, let's just briefly touch on the philosophical ideas that are driving these 2 very different ways of measuring value. So you've got the welfarist approach, which is the foundation for cost-benefit analysis. It basically says that value is determined by what people want, what they'd be willing to pay for a benefit. On the other side, you have the extra welfarist view, which underpins cost-effectiveness analysis. This view says that, hey, health is a special good, and the goal should simply be to maximize it for society, no matter what individuals say they're willing to pay.
We've just powered through a lot of key terms and concepts. And the reason these precise definitions are so incredibly important, well, it all comes down to real-world consequences and the very real risk of misunderstanding.
This is such a critical warning, and it comes directly from the source material. When a cost-benefit analysis says a program has a benefit-cost ratio of 6:1, it's so tempting to think, great, the government gets $6 back for every dollar it spends, but that's not what it means. It means the social value, those often intangible benefits like longer lives and less suffering, is estimated to be 6 times the cost. It's a measure of social welfare, not a financial investment portfolio.
You see, understanding these terms, efficacy, effectiveness, CEA, CBA, it empowers all of us. It allows us to ask better questions, to look at reports and headlines with a more critical eye, and to demand clearer answers about how we, as a society, invest in our collective health and well-being. The choices are never easy, but with the right toolkit, at least we can make them a whole lot clearer.